Welcome back. We're going to start basically from the top with Frederick Joseph, our incredible guest tonight on the Power Hour, the author of The Forthcoming But Not Coming Soon Enough, The Black Friend on Being a Better White Person. It'd be great if it was out yesterday, but we'll wait till December, right? Is it December when it comes out?
Yep, December.
We're looking very much forward to the book, looking very much forward to this conversation, especially on this day of days. Really appreciate you being with us. Especially, I know that your heart is heavy today, that this is something that you've been contending with for such a long time.
Yeah, for me, today feels like another day in a continuous nightmare. It's interesting because I always feel like there's this looming cloud over the shoulder of Black people and brown people in this country where, I had a pretty solid day yesterday. I went out, did some writing with my fiance. We had a few beers and watched, some basketball. And, America kind of teaches you that you can never be too comfortable. As soon as I'm like, what a day, today was a good day. All of a sudden, I'm kind of bombarded with, these videos. And I'm reminded, you can never be too comfortable in this country as a Black person, as a brown person.
So there must be, when I look at you and I'm so inspired by what you do, your work, and you're constant. I mean, you are constant. You are like the North Star of Black activism. That's true. I mean, and for years, not just, there are folks who have become prominent on the stage in the past few months, and rightfully so. But this is work you've been doing for years and years and years. And I'm so glad that you are here with us tonight and here with us the last 4.5 months as well. There must be a dichotomy for you in that, so you have this wonderful day and then you go home and this happens and you must feel like this is just another reminder, as you said. But I hope there's some part of you too that allows yourself to see the spark that you give to the rest of us.
And I appreciate the kind words. It truly does mean a lot. In terms of the spark, some days it's different than others, right? Like some days I'm deeply hopeful for not only our country, but our world, right? Like on days where, I'm out there and I'm protesting and there's 100,000 people, protesting alongside me, shouting Black Lives Matter for Breonna Taylor, for George Floyd, for Ahmaud Arbery, so on and so forth. And I'm like, we're really making some headway here. And then, when I see the disparagement of someone like, Jacob Blake, people are like, oh, he was this and he was that. He wasn't that good of a guy. And I'm like, it doesn't matter who this person is. Like, I don't think that people get that sometimes. And that's kind of one of the most difficult things of the work is that you shouldn't have to argue the merits of someone keeping their life just in spite of what they've done. It doesn't really make a difference, right? So in those days where I'm arguing with people on a baseline about the fact that Black people don't deserve to be murdered because they stole something maybe once. Black people don't deserve to be murdered because they ignored a police officer. That's not how this is supposed to work.
Right. And you've been saying this for a very long while, not just the past 4.5 months, but years and years before that. You've always, from what I know of you, and this is the first time I'm having the pleasure of actually speaking with you, but seeing your work, being familiar with your efforts, you've always found a window to look through to find an opportunity for your community. And that's what I think is so wonderful. And, it goes to the future with The Black Friend, with the book that's coming out in just a couple of months. And it goes all the way back to the Black Panther challenge that you did, and even before that. And it's difficult for me with a guest so inspirational as yourself to know where even to go, next to talk about all the things that you've done. But first and foremost, I know that a lot of people in our community were concerned for you personally. And I know you had some health issues. And is it okay if we discuss that for a minute, just so we know that you're okay?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. The outpouring of love from people really has meant a lot to me. I was in the hospital for a bit. Doctors actually still don't know what kind of viral infection that I had. I had symptoms that were somewhat similar to meningitis. Now, some people are saying I might have had COVID because we don't know enough about COVID to necessarily say that there wasn't some type of, I don't know. I have no clue. But, I live with multiple sclerosis. So when I get these moments, or when these moments have happened historically where I might get sick, there's always the danger that realistically something far more, far more permanent could happen to me in terms of maybe not being here anymore. So by the grace of everyone and just fighting, I'm still here.
And we're so very glad about that. We were sending a lot of solace and strength from the Biodestin Center for Social Justice headquarters from afar to make sure that you would get better and be with us in every which way, indeed. And that's the frightening part about this pandemic, right? About COVID, is we know so little about it.
Yeah.
So when you were in the hospital, it must have been, I don't want to put words in your mouth or feelings, but it must have been terrifying. I can't imagine not knowing, right?
Yeah, and I think that, it's still frightening, right? I feel maybe about 80% of, my normal self. But, the fact of the matter is that, you said it best. We don't know enough about, this virus. Every day it seems that there's some new bit of, frightening information. And people are, kind of taking it lightly now. We went from people just having symptoms in terms of, coughing and lack of breathing to toe decoloration to, there's so much happening with it that people need to be as vigilant as they ever were.
And, I'm just glad that you're feeling 80% better, and I hope the other 20% comes back very, very soon. And I know a lot of folks, and forgive me, Jen, I hope that I'm pronouncing, is it Jean or Jen? Please let me know in the comments so I can pronounce your name correctly. You had her worried. So there's a member of our community that was, feels better. And going back to the subject at hand, also says, now we need to come back together to make this spark a long burning flame. We can't let it dull again. And I think what they're referring to is what we were talking about earlier, is how do we make sure this moment doesn't get lost in all the noise? We have an election coming up. We have a pandemic we're dealing with. We want to not lose sight of, in the pandemic, in the voting, and all the things that are happening, the epidemic that we've always been facing of systemic racism. So how do we keep people engaged in that conversation, and not only in conversation, but as you well know, more than almost anybody, in action as well?
Yeah, I think that is one of the most important things to assess right now. Is we're in a year with a lot of distractions, right? You have a pandemic, as you said. You have the 2020 election, which is arguably the most important election in history. And then you still have this systemic racism that, even while we put a light, we were shining a light on, the issue of police brutality, for instance, and yet still people were being murdered by the police, even with that light being shined on them. So, I think that it starts with constant education, because before you can actually hold anyone accountable, which is the next step, you have to understand what you're holding people accountable for, right? I talk to people quite often who don't understand, what the police's role is supposed to be, right? Like, and how police are supposed to go about conducting investigations or engagements with us as people, black, brown, white, doesn't really matter, right? So even with the situation of Breonna Taylor being murdered, I realized, in conversation, a lot of people don't understand the actual story of what happened with Breonna Taylor and why the police were so wrong. They were hearing her name, but you have to do the work of finding out what took place. So when you're asking for this accountability, you know what you're asking for. And then again, that step of accountability, that's where the actual movement is, right? When we protest, when we post online, when we contact our politicians, when we're organizing, that's all for accountability, because accountability leads to the actual change that we want and the systemic evolution away from, systemic racism.
And you said, I mean, social media is a very important platform in all of this, and it's something that you utilize incredibly well. And I find it very interesting because you find this delicate balance, which is so hard to really distinguish between the levity that one needs to make things palatable, so to speak, and the seriousness that these issues demand. And I love what you said about Breonna Taylor, that she has become a meme. She's become a name that's passed from social media tag to social media tag. And how many of those folks really know the history or the actual story of what happened to her and why it's so devastating? And how do we educate at the same time we empower?
Yeah. I think that people have to realize many things have to be true at a time, right? Some of the most brilliant people who I learn from on a regular basis, the Coateses of the world and the Baldwins and the Bell Hooks and so on and so forth, the people who have been here and are still here, they have their styles. I think that my style is very much, I like to be approachable, right? Not necessarily palatable, but approachable. I want people to feel as though the way I come off means that they can engage with me, right? And then when we are engaging, you'll know the limits, you'll know what my limits are. But not everybody understands these complex and nuanced things, right? Like even as I'm explaining to people, I'm explaining civil rights for the LGBTQ plus community. If you've never necessarily been adjacent to or involved with the community, you might not understand. So I put it in terms oftentimes for those people in relation to other ways in which they're marginalized, like they themselves. And that allows people to, think something to start turning like, oh, okay. So the same way that this has happened to me, this is happening to them. Like, yes. Right. And that levity and that ability to approach things in a basic yet complex way makes people feel like they can actually engage with something without being judged necessarily.
And that's such a smart way to do it. And that's one of our missions here at the center, because Bayard Rustin, as you all know, was basically the godfather in intersectionality 20 years before the term was coined. And we're looking at, this week is the anniversary of the March in Washington. And, it's a huge moment for him because he literally planned the march and then was never really recognized for it for decades and decades. In fact, it wasn't until Obama gave him the Medal of Honor posthumously to his partner, Walter Nagel, that there was even really any sort of official recognition.
Yeah.
So you bring that intersectionality to your work is so important, and that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to have this conversation. I was going through your Twitter feed, and I saw there was a moment where you got a book on LGBTQIA inclusivity, and you were so excited. And you said, I have so much to learn. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing, because you're allowing your community to move with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the goal, you know. I can't ask for people to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself, right? And I think that that is the true mark of our great leaders historically, right? Like today, and I have to say this, we're on here right now. You know, today is the birthday of the great Marsha P. Johnson, right? She would have been 75 today, if I'm not mistaken. And you know, there's a juxtaposition as they exist at all times. You know, where on one hand, I'm I have to know that I know a lot and I've learned a lot, you know, about these issues, but I'm not in the experience of someone, you know, who is a Marsha P. Johnson. So if I'm not in someone's experience, right, and I haven't lived through someone's trauma and pain and turmoil, that means that every single second I can still be learning, right? Like there are plenty of people, you know, let's take Robin DiAngelo, who wrote White Fragility. Robin DiAngelo is not black. So even though she wrote White Fragility and she can constantly speak to issues, she should be learning at every single moment because it's not an experience that she has herself.
Right, and it's both a difficult thing to do and a wonderful thing to do if you do it in the right way. If you're open to those experiences, if you're willing to say, I don't know this, I haven't lived this, and you can't walk in someone's shoes. What you can do though is you can listen.
Mm-hmm.
You can listen, and every opportunity you have, you can pass the mic, and you can give folks the platform to say the things they need to say, to feel the things they need to feel, and to share those experiences, so at least you can have the experiences shared.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's exactly it, you know, and I think that with the new book, right? Like that was my goal. You know, when people came to me and they said, hey, you know, we want you to write a book on race. You know, my thing was we already have How to Be an Anti-Racist, which is a phenomenal book. We already have the works of people who are phenomenally more talented than I ever could be. Again, like James Baldwin, Coates, Angela Davis, so on and so forth. So what am I adding to the conversation? And I realized, you know, there's not necessarily a book for young people that, you know, for young people and adults can read too as well, of course, but like for the YA audience that breaks down some of these issues from just the place of a friend, right? Like, you know, when I was in high school, people would say things to me like, "Oh, you're an Oreo," because I would be into things that were, you know, black and white, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're kind of white on the inside." I'm like, yeah, that's problematic, and I don't think they were talking about that enough. You know, all these problematic things that happen in a life that a lot of white people and even people of color don't realize, right? And I think that, you know, coming from a place of, instead of pointing the finger and this and third, just like, hey, let's have a conversation.
Yeah, and so again, I'm wishing the book was coming out tomorrow, but it's coming out in December, and we do have we have a bookshop.org power hour list of all the authors that have been on the show, including for yourself, buy a copy for your family, buy a copy for a friend, buy a copy for an enemy who will become a friend, buy a copy for your local school district, and do this as well. Call your local library and make sure they're getting a copy for their shelves, if not a few. And if they're not, you request the book and they'll put it on their shelves. It's the Black Friend on Being a Better White Person. And we can't wait to get a copy in our social justice library here at the center. So go buy a bunch of copies as we're talking to everybody. So what brought you to writing the book? Your personal story is such a part of that. So would you mind sharing a bit of that? You just kind of you know, touched on it. Would you mind going a little deeper? Because one of the things that our community loves to hear are people's coming out stories, and coming out stories don't always deal with queer identity. They deal with all of our identities and how we are able to interact with different communities and assert ourselves in a way that makes us comfortable and makes us feel like we're a part of a larger whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that because I think that identity is such an interesting thing, right? Because there was a moment for me, this as an aside, where I quote unquote like came out as a person who lives with a disability, right? And that was a surprise to everyone. And that was a really big moment for me, a moment where I had to be vulnerable, put myself out there. And I think the Black friend is also that. As someone, most people know me, at this point in my life, where I have read a ton, traveled, and really assessed race and identity in this way that I've let it kind of like wash over me. But I wasn't always that person, right? At one point, I was in high school, I was in junior high school, I was in elementary school, and I was trying to fit in within a society that is draped in white supremacy, right? So what does that look like? And when I was writing the book, that's what I wanted to capture. I wanted to capture the stories of the little boy who was the most gifted student in his class, but afraid to get good grades because his white teacher was saying that he was cheating on tests when he wasn't because she didn't believe the Black kid was the smartest one in the class, right? And for me, I was like, this is important because we talk about racism, we talk about white supremacy, we talk about bigotry in this overt sense, in this sense of lynchings, police brutality, the N word, things like that. But it's so more nuanced than that, and the nuanced parts, the details are actually the most insidious, right? It really is about the day to day interactions, the little moments that become these big things that can alter an entire life, and that's what happened to me. So this book is I think Chelsea Clinton said it was a hard read but an important read or something along those lines, because for me it was a hard write but an important write because it helped me heal from certain things that I've dealt with. So it was kind of like my coming out of, these are the traumas that I've had, and this is the kid, the young adult that I was, just trying to make it, trying to fit in.
So I think we lost Frederick for a moment again. He's coming back on.
Can everyone hear me? Oh, was that me? I thought it was there.
So I just popped up. If someone,
So you all can see me.
Frederick, can you hear?
Um,
All right. So I think we're back. Yes. Lo siento,
I
my
can hear you.
friend.
Can you hear
I'm
me?
so sorry for this. We're working out the bugs. How are we?
You can hear me?
Yes. So the question asked is, let's go right through it. Yes, I can see my friend. So the question, you can't hear me. Is that what you're saying?
You're breaking up a little bit.
All right, we're gonna try one more time. How's that?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great, good. All right, sorry, we're working through this, everybody.
No,
Frederick, especially you, thank you for your patience.
No, I'm more than happy.
So the question to you was a moment, if you don't mind sharing, that started off being something that could have been devastating for you, and you were able to, with your intelligence, with your passion, with your grace, work it through. I think that those are the moments that our community really loves to hear about, where we can persevere over the difficulties that we're faced with because of the identities that we hold.
Yeah, I think for me, if I was giving a moment, I have one that's not that's pretty recent. I would say maybe in the last 5 years. I was working at an organization as the head of marketing there, and while I was there, my president, the president of the organization I was at, while the organization was a nonprofit working towards elevating and supporting Black and Brown communities, what I wasn't prepared for was that my president was pretty racist. And I think that oftentimes in spaces where people, whether it has to do with racism, homophobia, transphobia, sexism, the people who are doing the work assume that they aren't also the perpetrators of some of the issues. And that was my situation. And I wanted to give up. Every single day was pretty hard. I was having anxiety attacks, vomiting in my trash can just because of the constant stress and how I was being berated by my president, in very racist ways. And somewhere I found inside of me not the courage to necessarily fix the situation, but the courage to move on. I really believed in myself as a professional and said, I don't have to deal with this. And it was one of the most empowering moments of my entire life because, I think as people who are on the margins, we're always taught to kind of put up with certain things until they get better. But sometimes you can make your own better by just walking away. And that was one of the most important things I ever did, because had I not done that, that was actually not only holding me back in terms of my career, but my personal life. I actually found my voice by having more freedom and free time, right? I became, I guess, Fred T. Joseph on social media right after that. I had always been, someone who was in the streets protesting, a part of the social justice movement, so on and so forth. But that's when I really said, I can be something more. I can be someone who, stands for something on a larger, grander scale. So I'm actually thankful for having gone through that and found my voice.
And your voice, so that's fascinating to me, and I think really helps our community hear someone like you who's so strong and so empowering to so many other folks had a moment like that where you were so distraught and at this low point, and you realize, I just need my journey doesn't end here, my journey starts here. And you became this persona. Mm-hmm. So how did that work? So that also fascinates me, this next step in your journey. You become, as you said yourself, Fred T. Joseph, this social media presence. What were the first steps of that journey like, and how did you come to realize how potent it could be?
I think the first steps of the journey were it was kind of like assessing what was I already doing as a professional for my clients and the places I was working for, right? As a marketer, my job is to come in and help people scale their business, whether it be in the digital space or through traditional marketing, things like that. So I said, how can I do that for myself? Because, I was already, someone who had went to Ferguson to protest, someone who was already on the front lines constantly, someone who was dealing with, all these things. And I had a voice already. So I just said to myself, what do the people need that isn't happening currently in terms of voices, right? If you're already doing the work and you already have the knowledge, where is the gap and how can you fill it? And I said, well, I think that what's missing is a voice that is truly intersectional and kind of like fits these kind of models of, I don't know how to put it. I suppose like, I'm 6'3", 200 and something pounds, tattoos and things like that. That's not necessarily how normally we would model the intersectional activist, I suppose. And I wanted to be that. I said, you know what? I want to have a voice that is not only talking about social justice issues in terms of Black people. I want to have a voice that shows like, hey, this big dude here, he's also fighting for women. This big dude who's playing basketball and is also telling people, this is about fighting for trans rights as well. And I wanted to be that person. I found a way.
There's so much kindness in all that you do, but there's also a cunning to it that I admire so greatly, because you and I are simpatico in that way. I think that the reason the center works so well, what we do is I have these epiphanies and our community has these epiphanies, and the folks that work with us are always thinking, how can we best move forward? What can we do to bring a voice to this, to make sure this is recognized, to make sure this community is not left behind? And I see that in you, in your journey. I can see all these light bulbs lighten up through the path of you saying, oh my gosh, here's an opportunity. Here's what I want to do. Here's where I can make a difference. And there are so many moments that you have that could be the culmination of somebody else's entire career or entire activism life. And you've just moved forward from that and made it even more so. So you had this moment, and for those of you who don't know, Frederick sent 75,000, am I correct? 75,000 inner city kids to see Black Panther for free. Through, almost single-handedly, you did that, and you got partners along the way and folks that obviously supported, but that was your epiphany, that was your moment, and you moved forward with it. And tell us about this moment right here. I love this picture.
Yeah, so funny enough, that's one of the best moments of my actual life. We were actually at an Oscars pre-show in LA, and I was surprised by the E! Network because that specific moment, we were actually working on the next challenge. It was the Captain Marvel challenge to take young girls to see Captain Marvel for Women's History Month. And they surprised me with some of the kids who went to see the Black Panther and some of the girls who were going to see Captain Marvel. Because I think at that point, we had raised something like 1.4 million combined for those efforts. So it was this brilliant moment. They pulled the curtain back, and I didn't know the kids were there. It was amazing.
Yeah. So, and there's a video. If anybody wants to check it out, you can check. It's on YouTube, and it's really it's a beautiful thing. They all do the Wakandan salute, and I cannot imagine how you must have felt. But you did that. You single-handedly had the epiphany, and then you had the wherewithal, the strength, and the passion and the compassion to put it together. And as you said, raised $1.5 million to send. And again, that's you looking out for not just one community, because you did it for the inner city kids to go see Black Panther, and then you thought, you know what? Now let's send young women and girls to see Captain Marvel. And the fact that you can think so intersectional, there's that moment that you don't even think this is outside my community. That doesn't matter to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just how I was raised. To be quite frank with you, if it's not intersectional, I don't, for lack of a better term, if it's not intersectional, I don't want any part of it, right? Because it takes all of us together to move forward. So again, it's not enough. Like I know that there's a lot of movements that focus on black people, but don't talk about people who are black and trans, for instance. But my thing is the most marginalized group in the world are black trans women. So if you make the world better, for instance, for black trans women, you inherently make the world better for everyone else, right? A rising tide lifts all ships. And that's my mindset whenever I'm doing anything. And I think you said earlier, I don't like to duplicate work. I like to step in and fill the gaps where they are, right? So, people were mad at me actually during the Black Panther challenge, during the Captain Marvel challenge, saying, a lot of that money could have gone to books and schools. Funny enough, we actually ended up donating most of it to the organizations involved because we got the events underwritten by the movie theaters. But I think that people have to realize kids need joy too, right? And I was filling the gap of joy. It's one thing to have the necessities. It's another thing to have a good and prosperous life.
And I think, I mean, it was an important movie in so many ways. It wasn't just a comic book movie. It wasn't just a superhero movie, but to see that much black identity on the screen was such an important moment for those kids, and the fact that you brought that to so many is just beyond words. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate everyone for having any part, right? Anyone who shared it, anyone who donated, anyone who just went to go see the films. I think the film itself was an act of resistance, right? That has led, in my opinion, to towards a renaissance of not just black media, but media with people of color in general.
Right, and it's about representation too. It's about seeing yourself on that screen, reading about yourself in that book. We've talked about that with a lot of our transgender folks, especially with the movie Disclosure that just came out. Seeing yourself, having that possibility model. And I want to make this crystal to you that you are now that for so many.
I mean, that means a lot. I think, and this, the same way I do, we all do our individual work. When you're in the work, and the work is constant, you don't see yourself in these ways, right? Like, even with COVID-19, we raised, well over $1 million to support people, with their rents and things like that. And someone sent me a message and they said, you saved my life, right? And I like broke down because I don't see it that way, right? And you never see it that way when you're into work. You just keep going, and then one day you lay on your bed when it's all time to be done, and you're saying, okay, did I make an impact? Did I make my time here worth it?
And that's why I wanted to make sure that I made that crystal to you. And listen, there's a bunch of folks I've been so enamored of you, honestly, that our community, Jen says, that was awesome. Chris says, you are amazing. Julie says, good for you. Stephanie says, thank you for your kindness, inspirational actions. Julie says, again, those kids deserve and need this. And Paula says, thank you for sticking up for fun and as an essential quality of life. And it's so interesting, again, because our folks will go and see your Twitter feed, hopefully, and see you on social media. And your voice is so strong, and 9 out of 10 of your things that you share will be these very strong, passionate calls for action. And then there'll be one that just gives you a smile and gives you this moment of levity and a breath. And I think that's what I've been looking for this entire show, talking to you. You give us that moment to breathe.
Yeah, I don't even know how to respond to that because it's again it's interesting like when people see how you interact, right, or see like the things you post and so forth. I don't know that I love just to make sure that people are happy and smiling. I'm almost like I, I think from you putting up the comments and stuff like that, I'm almost like embarrassed now. um, sorry, sorry. It's like an emotional thing. Um, yeah, yeah. Sorry. Hello.
Oh, stop! I'm glad. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. And you deserve to hear each every day.
Hello. Oh, are we disconnected again? Oh no. No, Telly. Telly. It's breaking up.
All right, I'm back, I think. Hopefully Frederick will be back.
Yep. I can hear you. I can hear you. Yep.
All right, good. So I'm sorry. That was like the worst moment to lose contact. You were getting emotional, and I thought I was going to get you to cry.
Well, I held on. Everything happens for a reason. When you got disconnected, I was like, oh, good. Because, it really is a thing. I think that the moment that we're in right now is such an emotional moment and everything is so raw that even seeing any positivity means a lot to me, right? Like, I'm very nervous, for instance, about this book and how it's going to be received. Though I have, some really good reviews from some amazing people who I'm in awe of. But I'm hoping that it does what it's supposed to do for people. But all these different things, they're emotional. When people tell you that they appreciate you, that's an emotional thing, especially in a time where Black people are meant to feel, unappreciated and unloved.
Well, we so appreciate you, and I dare say we so love you. You have done so much for so many of our beautifully diverse communities, and I'm glad that we're able to give a little bit of that back to you. Now, listen up, beloved community. Go buy this book. Again, go buy one for yourself, buy one for a friend, buy one for an enemy who will become a friend, buy one for your local school district, and call your library, your local library, and make sure that you're going to get some for their shelves. The book doesn't come out until December 1st. Frederick, I'm going to put you on the spot. I would dig it so the most if you would come back in December, and we'll sell some more books and we'll talk some more stuff.
Of course, and I actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send a few to you all for the bookshelf ahead of time. So when we come back, maybe we can get a conversation right around the start. So you'll have already had some time to read it. You and the team there. So
we would so love that. You have made my night. Thank you, my friend. And I want to thank, I believe, again, I want to give a shout out to April Rain, who's the person who introduced us back in the day and got this conversation and this relationship started. So I always want to give a shout out to those that put us in touch with such wonderful folks. Thank you, Frederick, for your time tonight and your time, all this time that you've put in to make sure that we're all feeling great solace, great strength, great empowerment. You're quite an extraordinary person.
I appreciate it, and thank you all for the work that you do, and just being open to conversation, learning, teaching, and not just on at the center and on this call, but everyone who's watching. Just watching is its own act of evolution, because you're learning and growing and you're listening. So just thank you. Just I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that.
I appreciate that. It's funny. Our host, we have an open and out mic night some Friday nights here on the Power Hour, and our hostess Haley, she says that we supply the hour, but our community, they supply the power. So we're right there with you on that one.
Absolutely.
So, thank you. I'm going to say goodnight to our community. Would you hang out for a minute in the green room, as it were, so I can say goodnight to you personally?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Thank you, my friend. We'll see you again around December. I'm gonna ink it in right now.
Absolutely. I'm totally into it.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you in a minute. All right. This is the book, everybody. Go buy a bunch of copies. All right. Please. You're going to love it. We're going to love it. It's all going to be fantastic. I want to thank Frederick personally, because I was feeling very distraught today, and this conversation and this share of community, I know helped me personally, and I know that it helped our community, and we are so thankful when folks come to us and share their strength and share their passion and share their compassion, and most of all, share their journey, especially when it's so inspirational as Frederick's. Tomorrow night, please join us for queer yoga. As always, a night to take a breath, a night to lead us to virtual nirvana. Wednesday, we have Jen Baker, who is an incredible advocate for diversity in publishing. Thursday, we have KSA Lemon, who is the incredible author of Heavy. And then Friday, we have Alicia Day, Newark's own fabulous drag queen, to talk about drag culture, Black history and Black music, and the intersectionality of all of that as well. And then all of September, we have some amazing things happening for all y'all. We love you very, very much. You are our beloved community. We want to thank you so, so much for being a part of the show tonight, the show every night. If this is your first night, hope you'll come back and visit us again. If you are regular, know how much that means to the center and to me and to all of us sharing this community. We've done 125 shows. We're going to do 125 more, and then another 125 after that. But in the meanwhile, we will see you again in 22 hours and 55 minutes. We love you all. We respect you all. Take care of your family, chosen or otherwise. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon. Good night, everybody. Thank you.